Everybody, welcome back. In this video, we're going to go ahead and use deform tools as well as sculpting tools, and we're going to take our initial character foundation built at the start of week 8, and we're going to personalize it via those deforms and sculptings tools and other such tools that we will use. So first of all, I have a little bit of setup work to do. And now I'm going to smooth this one more time. We smoothed it at the end of the video where we created this version of the character via the extrude method, but I'm going to smooth it again because we're going to be using deforms and sculpting tools. And as we saw with deforms, you want lots of geometry to work with. Same thing with sculpting tools. Same thing with all the tools we'll be using. You want lots of geometry to work with in order to get the most out of these deformer techniques. So I went ahead, smoothed it out, just one division, just basic smooth to add in some more geometry. I'm not trying to crash my computer here. I'm going to duplicate this. And there we go. We're all set to start working now. All right, so let's begin. We have this copy here. I'm actually going to go ahead and bring back the original one just so I can see the changes that I'm doing as I'm doing them. So I'm actually going to bring back the original. I'm going to push it back a bit. And I'm going to select my new one here. And we're going to discuss a new non-deform tool. So we can go up to deform. And we can go to, by the way, I turned on my my symmetry in between cuts. That's the only difference that I've done here. I'm going to go to deform. And instead of going down to the non-linear tools here, I'm going to use lattice here. I'm going to select that. It creates this little box around my selected object that I'm now going to be able to deform. So in this case, it has the initial dimensions of 2 by 5 by 2. I'm going to go ahead and increase these a little bit just so I have more to play with. And I'm going to start testing. I think I'm going to make for this first character, I'm going to make them small. Now, previously, if you wanted to make something small, I'm going to go ahead and just select the original character at this moment. Previously, if you wanted to make something small, you would just scale it down. But this isn't just small. This is just the same exact proportions, but tinier, scaled down. In this case, with this deform tool, not only are we going to shrink the character down, but we're going to start changing around the proportions as well. So I'm going to go to my front view. I'm going to select not the vertices of the model, but the lattice has its own lattice points that you can play with. And we can start playing around with this. In this case, you will notice when I go back into my 3D view, not only are we shrinking the character down, the proportions are changing appropriately, which is different from just a basic scaling down of the character, as you can see here, where we scale it down. We still have basically the same proportions here, but with this one, not only are we making it smaller, we are getting some slightly different proportions as a result. I'm going to add in... I have to remove my tweaks before resizing. That's okay. I'm going to add in some more points because it actually makes more sense, I think, to add in some more points before I start doing anything here. So let's add 4 and 4. And now let's go ahead and start shrinking down. I wouldn't add too many lattice points. 5 by 5 by 5 is probably the absolute max you want to use for anything. And I'm using a little less than that just so I have some more control here. Just so you don't have so many points that you start getting lost in what each one does. Seeing what area of the model each point affects is a good test as well. In this case, I don't want to play with this too much. It's starting to become a little bit too pronounced, this arch here, but I can fix that afterwards. Okay, that's a good starting point from which I can start playing around with what I have here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to select this, and just like in the previous video, when I'm happy with deforms after I'm done, I'm going to select and delete by type history. If you're not happy with your deforms at all, you can just delete the actual thing that was created, in which case it's the lattice and the lattice base, and your model goes back to normal. But if you aren't happy with your deforms, then you can just select the actual model itself, go to edit, delete by type, history, and now the model is stuck in this form, which is fine because this is the form that I want to play with. At this point, I'm going to go ahead. I still have symmetry turned on. I'm also going to turn on my soft selection. We've used soft selection previously, but now we're going to discuss it a little bit. Soft selection is a great tool to use when you're working with high poly models, because not only does it select one object, not only does it select one component, whether it be a vertex, an edge, or a face, not only can you select a bunch of components, but everything around that general area of the component, which you can resize by holding B and then moving your left mouse button in and out like you would a brush. Everything in that area will also be affected as well. There we go. Small. Character foundation, small variant. Character foundation, variant, small. Actually, I don't even need to name this character foundation anymore. I'm just going to call it variant small. And this one I'm just going to call original to keep the naming simple. Okay, so that's our first variant. I'm going to go ahead and push this over to the side now. Let's make another one. basic small person, basic original person, and a basic tall person have now been made. Fantastic. I think, do I want to make any more changes to this? For basic variants, that's enough. We got the original, we got the small, we got the tall. I think before moving on, I just want to show off that similar to the other deform tools, we can make deformations as we did with this tall guy, and then we can go ahead and go into deform lattice again, and, you know, maybe add even some more points this time, and keep playing around with them with this person even more at this point. Now we have plenty of points here, so we can start making other kinds of changes to the character that we have here. You don't want to go too crazy with the amount of points you have here, but it doesn't hurt to have a healthy amount. I said 5 by 5 by 5 is probably the most you want to push it. In reality, for something like this, maybe you can even go up to 10 by 10 by 10. Not that I would. 9 by 7 by 2 is a pretty safe bet for whatever you're planning to do with a character. For a basic demo, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. One thing to note, however, similar to other deform tools like the bend, the squash, all that stuff from the previous video, just like how you can move around the lattice here, you can move around the lattice and the character will move around with it. If you select the actual character, the mesh that's within your lattice cage here, then you get some weirder effects like this. Let's actually make some more dramatic changes so we can see what I'm talking about. I'm not going to keep this, but I do want to just demonstrate what's going on here. Get sort of a funhouse effect as the character goes through. Another thing that you may want to test around with animation if you wanted to. Get something kind of interesting like this. Anyway, for our purposes, I'm happy with it with where this is now. So I'm going to go ahead and edit, delete by type, history to get rid of that lattice cage. Good. Tall, medium, and small. Let's go ahead and make some more variants. Once again, we're going to make a duplicate of our original character. I'm going to push the original back here. This character, this time what I'm going to do is go into my front view. I am going to turn off my soft select for now. And my symmetry for now. And I am going to select my hands. Well, I guess I'll turn off the symmetry for this. It will make it easier. I'll turn it on. I will select the head. Right around there. And I will select my feet. Right around there. And I'm going to hold, I believe, Control. Nope. Shift. I always confuse those two. Hold Shift to select everything except the stuff that I previously selected. So now everything except for the hands, the head, and the feet are selected. I'm going to use a new tool now. So we're going to go up to Edit Mesh. And I am going to go down to where it says Transform. Now I'm going to just pull on this blue arrow here. And I'm going to make a skinnier person here. Yeah, let's begin adjusting what we have here. So let's go ahead and solidify that. We have this very skinny person here. In order to best fix up the inconsistencies in our mesh, i.e. these very obvious changes where we go from skinny back to normal, we are going to want to go to Mesh Tools, and now we're going to want to go down to Sculpting Tools. We're going to start using Sculpting Tools. Specifically, we want to use the Smooth tool. I'm going to hold B to lower my brush size. I'm going to hold M to adjust my brush strength. There we go. I have to push it quite a bit, but holding M and pushing my mouse down can adjust my brush strength. And with symmetry turned on, now I can start using the sculpting tool. Now let's lower my brush even more. This smooth tool will start helping out just a bit. But I'm going to use both the combination of the smooth tool as well as regular soft selection techniques. So actually, before we use the smooth tool too much, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my regular selection, vertices, go into my front view. Still have symmetry turned on, so I'm going to go ahead and start playing around with these. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to use the smooth tool to smooth that stuff after the fact. Now let's go ahead with the object selector. We're going to go back to mesh tools. Go sculpting tools, the smooth tool. We can also open up the settings for the smooth tool if we want to. We can also adjust the size of the brush from here and the strength from here as well. Sculpting tools work best when you are using high poly models. Sculpting tools do not work basically at all if you are using very low poly geometry. So you want to make sure you have something smooth. In my case, I smoothed this twice. And as a result, the sculpting tool works quite well. Specifically, the smooth tool helps to clean up and straighten out my geometry that I have here into something that makes more sense. Though, of course, I'm probably going to need to go back into my regular vertice selection here to continue adjusting at this point. Skinny variant. Let's make more variants. Using the same techniques, I'm now going to make a chunky person. This, by the way, is a nice shortcut. I want to point out this is a nice shortcut for giving your character clothing if you want to. I don't want to give my character clothing in this case. I just want to make them a chunkier variant here. So I'm just pulling this out, and I'm going to start working with this now using the Lattice tool, the Soft Select tool, and the Smooth tool in our sculpting menu. And I'm going to use all those things to make a chunkier variant of the character. Before moving on, let's also go ahead and take a look at our chunky variant, because now I'm going to go ahead and use one more type of sculpting tool that we haven't yet. We've been using the smooth tool a lot, and it's been helping a lot, but we can also use the grab tool right here. Specifically, we want the settings for the grab tool. And we can play around with the size and the strength. Of course, we can also manipulate that by holding B and the left mouse button for the size, and M and the left mouse button for the strength. And we can make further adjustments like this. Let's actually turn on our symmetry here. Of course, if you make use of any sort of sculpting tool, you should also make use of the smooth tool after the fact. I'm not going to make that many big changes here because I'm actually pretty happy with how this variant has turned out, but I will make some minor little things here and there. Okay, and I can go on, of course, but for a demo, these are enough variants, and I think they are all different enough. We even have this funny, goofy one with the big head and the hands and the feet and stuff. All right, so let's go over why we did this the way that we did. See, what we're essentially going to do is we are going to create sliders so that we can take our original character here, and we can use sliders to directly change and deform the proportions of it to look skinnier or chunkier or smaller or taller or goofier without having to fully commit to one or the other. It's perfectly fine for you if you just create the initial character and then commit to making a skinny character, or commit to making a chunky character, or commit to making a small or tall character. But I am showing you what to do if you want to play around with that setting, if you want to really personalize and change your decisions on the fly. You begin by creating a bunch of variants, as you can see here. We can double check our variant silhouettes once again by pressing 7 on the keyboard, and we can see a nice silhouette, since we don't have lights in the scene, of what all our characters and variants look like. We have a nice chunky one, a skinny one, the original one, small, tall, goofy. Let's go ahead and create these sliders so that we can actually take advantage of all of these of all these creations that we have here. So first of all, you want to make sure, I'm going to go up to display and the heads up display and the poly count. You want to make sure that each and every single one of these models has the exact same poly count. And because all of our changes were deforms, i.e. we were playing with soft selections, we were playing with the sculpting tool, we were playing with the lattice tool under the deform menu. Those are things that just change the appearance of what you have, and it's not adding or subtracting geometry. So theoretically, that means that the small character also has the exact same amount of faces, and it does. The skinny character has the exact same amount of faces, yes it does. Chunky character has the exact same amount of polys, yes it does. Tall character, same amount, yes. Goofy character, same amount. It's very important that all your characters have the exact same amount of polys in order for this next thing to work. So let's go ahead now and select every single one of my variants. And then the last thing I will select is the original character. And I will now go up to Deform, Blend Shape, and just apply. And now we have this new input here called Blend Shape. So I'm going to go ahead and hide all my variants now because we don't need them anymore. And if we just zoom into our character here, we will see that we have this blend shape input here, and we have these sliders here. We hold Control, we can start playing around with values, and we can start deforming our character based on all the work we've previously done. So if I want to make it fully goofy, I just push it all the way up to 1. If I want to make it fully chunky, I push it all the way up to 1. Fully skinny, push it all the way up to 1. Fully tall, push it up to 1. Small, push it up to 1. But of course, I have various sliders here, so I don't have to just commit to just goofy or just chunky. I can make it chunky and sort of goofy. And maybe also kind of skinny. So no chunky at all. Just a skinny big head. And we can commit to making that big head even smaller like this. You can now play around with these values and create your own type of character based on the variants that you made. You can deform and blend to create all sorts of interesting additional shapes here. This is yet another one of those rare occasions where if you're using this method of constructing your character, making all these variants and then combining them all together via the blend shape, then this is yet another reason, this is yet another scenario where you don't want to, where you absolutely do not want to delete the history. If you delete the history, let's go ahead and delete the history. It gets rid of those sliders for you to play around with, but of course we still have all the variants here. So I'm just going to go ahead and select them all again. Select the character last. You select all your variants first, and then your actual main base character last. And then again, deform, blend shape, and you get those inputs back. So again, I can hide all my variants because I don't need them anymore. And again, I can play around with my values here. Holding Control, I can control the slider better and create whatever kind of character I would like to create without having to just commit to one thing or another. Couple of quick last-minute notes on blend shape. First of all, I want to draw your attention to the fact that the sliders we created are named after our actual models. So you want to make sure as you're going through the process of creating your variants that you are naming your variants appropriately, because those names are going to show up here for the sliders, and you want to make sure you know what you're actually controlling via those sliders. Second thing I want to draw your attention to is the actual value caps. So far, whenever I've used these, I stopped at 1, but you can actually push it beyond 1 if you want to. You can go to like 1.7, and the character will try to adjust accordingly. I wouldn't recommend you go that far beyond the cap of 1, but you can, if you want to, push the value similar to curvature beyond the values that you get here. So instead of just going up to 1, I can go up to 3 and do that. Maybe with a little goofy thing there as well. Create something strange. But I wouldn't push these values too far beyond 1. You can also go ahead and push them to the to negative values as well. Again, I probably wouldn't push these too far past 0, but you can push them down a little further beyond 0 if you want to. All right, so this has been a video where we were using various deform and sculpting tools to create a range of variants for our character, and then combining them all together into sliders so that we can customize our character however we want. Obviously, if you want more options to customize your character and personalize your character, you will need to create more and more variants. If you want sliders that do more exaggerated things, you need to create characters with more exaggerated features. You need to make the chunky character even chunkier, skinny character even skinnier, small smaller, tall taller, and so on and so forth. There's no limit to how many variants you can do. I would recommend you don't push it too far, though. Between 5 and 8 is probably a good idea if you're going to go that route. There is nothing stopping you from just using the base character for your projects, and there's nothing stopping you from just taking the base character and committing to just one, making it look like one of these variants. But if you want the option, then I would recommend making multiple of these variants, then using the blend shape tool, and then just, playing around with them to create something of your own. An original blend of all these ideas. Looks like an alien now. All right. Well, that has been a video on character personalization and character deformation. So thank you very much for watching. Next time we are going to discuss UV unwrapping and texturing our characters. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.